Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel, or if you're new, hi, how you doing? So in this video, we'll take a look at how to create a portrait using charcoal. The materials I use will be listed down below in the description, and everything that I'm using today can be found at your local art store. So when you first approach the portrait, you want to have the mindset of establishing the basic forms and shape, and also direction, as opposed to focusing on the detail and drawing the contour line. As you can see here, I started off the piece by drawing a cube. Now in this cube, it actually establishes the direction of the skull, and then I also marked the most dominant line at this phase, which is the brow line. After the brow line, I usually go ahead and mark the line below the nose, the line in the middle of the lips, and also the line for the bottom of the chin. For this specific piece, as you can see, the bottom of her chin, it is highlighted due to the light source, so I actually marked the bottom of the shadow that was on her chin. So whichever step you're at in the drawing phase, I think it's imperative that you continue to measure the drawing. So you can use a ruler, or you can use the medium that you're currently using. As you can see, I keep on lifting my hand up from the paper, and I'm lifting it above the camera. That is because I have my laptop above. It's on like a little table above my sketch pad here. So I'm just using my Vine charcoal just to measure where everything is located on the portrait. So the next step is to carve out the basic forms. Now you can carve out the basic form of the entire portrait, but in this step I like to carve out the form of the shadows. Because the shadows are such a dominant feature in this specific portrait, I went ahead and kind of skipped drawing the form of the entire face and just went ahead to carve out the forms of the face, like the forms of the shadows of the face. So doing this not only prepares you for the block-in phase, but it also helps you get a good read on where everything is located. It gives you a good read on, hey, is this nose the same angle as it's depicted in the photo? Is everything in its proper place? So after I finish with that step, I like to go ahead and carve out the rest of the basic forms. In this specific photo, I'm carving out the form of her hair as well as the top of her head. So once I'm done establishing the basic form of the subject, I just go in and begin the block in phase. So I just go ahead and block in the shadows of the face and also the hair. So for the block in phase, I actually just started using Vine charcoal, specifically a fat a fat piece of Vine charcoal. I just feel as though having a thicker piece of whether block or Vine charcoal, it gives you more it just fills in the space a little bit faster. I used to use block charcoal for the block in phase. However, when I switched over to Vine charcoal, I noticed that it was just easier for me to shade in, or to set the mid-tone, and you'll see what I mean in just a moment. So after the block in phase, I like to not smudge but wipe all of the charcoal all over the page. Now, even though I'm using gray tone paper, the way I approach portraiture is that regardless of the tone of the paper, I don't use that paper's color as a mid-tone. I like to establish the mid-tone by smearing the charcoal across the subject's face, and you'll see what I mean in just a moment. So this is what the portrait comes out looking like after the block-in phase. And before I actually establish the midtone, before I smear the charcoal, what I like to do is use my charcoal pencil to define the key areas, the key points. So I go in and I draw the shape of the eyes. I go ahead and sharpen the bottom of the nose, and I just use it to, for lack of better words, just make certain points of the face pop. And I like to use this method because when you smear, whether it's Vine charcoal or block charcoal for your block and phase, when you smear the charcoal to establish your midtone, you don't want to lose the drawing. You don't want to lose the drawing in that smudging, in that smearing. And when you go over the important points of the face with charcoal pencil, sorry, I just had a brain fart there, you prevent your drawing from being lost. And you'll see what I mean in just a moment. So after I finished sharpening the key points of the face, I just go ahead and smear the charcoal everywhere to get that mid-tone. So when you smear the charcoal, you can actually use a rag, a blending stump, or like I did in this video, I used my fingers. I actually wanted to use my fingers just to give it a more painterly effect, so it was purely an artistic choice. But like I said, you can use whichever material you would like to blend it. All right, now here comes the fun part, establishing the highlights. Now for this piece, I did not use white charcoal or white charcoal pencil, because if I did, then that would technically be the highlights, because I am using gray tone paper. If we were to use like a gray scale and measure the drawing off of that, then technically this piece would not have any highlights, but for the sake of this video, I'm using an eraser to quote unquote establish the highlights. So I'm just erasing the areas that have a lighter value as opposed to the darker values, which we already established earlier in the portrait. And here is the final piece. Now, at this point, I like to go in and just refine some of the details using charcoal pencil. And that concludes this video's lesson. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you'd like to see more drawing videos from moi, go ahead and hit the subscribe button, and also go ahead and check out my Instagram. Also, a quick update, but I am selling prints. These prints are going to be available on my Etsy shop. Link is going to be in the description below. Thank you guys again so much for checking out this video. If you would like to see a longer process video on this drawing with the more in-depth information on how I approach drawing, definitely check out my Patreon page. I will begin uploading videos every week to my Patreon starting this Saturday.